the following conversation I had with Gara Steinfeld. This was an amazing conversation, but I have to begin with a little warning that some of the topics we discussed in this conversation were not appropriate for children. So if you're listening to this out loud around children, or if you are a child, skip to the next podcast and enjoy that one. If you are still listening, we discussed topics of intimacy, love addiction, sex addiction, topics of relationships. It was very, very enlightening. Gara is doing amazing work in her practice down in Florida. And I personally know many people who have benefited so much from her intelligence and just wisdom. So I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We spoke about everything, no holds barred, and we really, it was an enjoyable conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Just a reminder, please like and follow the YouTube as well as write comments. We look at all the comments, and I'd like to know what you like about the podcast, what you hate about the podcast, and any future guests you'd love me to have. Thank you so much, and enjoy.
2, 3. Hello and welcome to the Brainstorm podcast. And now, your host, Sonny Perlman.
Gara Steinfeld.
Yes.
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 I'm so happy to have you. We're gonna do a whole bio we're gonna put it up. But what I know about you is that you're close with a good friend of mine, Ellie, who's sitting in the room, and he said you gotta speak to Gara. Mm-hmm. And then I've seen a lot of your videos, and I got very excited and wanted to talk about some hot topics that some people don't want to talk about. And besides for that, what I believe is the core of everything. So you do a lot. How about this? Mm-hmm. Can you tell us really quick who you are, what you're doing in terms of the work?
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Gara Steinfeld, and I have a group practice in Boca Raton with other fantastic therapists. And at the core of our work, what I like to say is we work with sex addiction, love addiction, codependency, eating disorders, which I consider to be all of these ways that we learn how to make ourselves feel safe when we didn't get what we needed growing up, right? So at the core of it, is really like attachment trauma, attachment wounds, right? Not feeling safe growing up, not feeling loved growing up, really not getting those needs met. A lot of the trauma that I'm working with clients on is often also sometimes the trauma of what didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go back and go into definitions and all that stuff because not everybody knows all the things that you're talking about. I personally deal with it on a daily basis, but and I would like to learn from you also. There's a lot that you have to offer. But I saw you say something, and I don't remember the punchline. I just remember the lead up in a video actually a while ago, before I even knew I was going to have you on the podcast. But you said this was a statement. Okay, let me see if I remember it. And I wanted to ask you about it because I was very excited about it. It was, meeting people does not mean you have codependency.
Yes.
That was the beginning. I don't know what else you talked about, but that one line I remembered for a long time. Yes. I don't know when you said it. It must have popped up on my feed. And I was like, oh, I know that person. That's the person who said that. So the question that I have is, it resonated very powerfully with me. But the question I have is that nowadays, because everybody's becoming very aware of dependency and, like codependency, and am I independent enough to be that I don't need anybody? The whole idea that we got to be super independent and then we could have a relationship with somebody. Like, if you're not super independent, you can't even do that. All those things. The reason it resonated with me maybe is because I would die if my wife wasn't here. Now, that's a terrible thing to say in terms of codependency, but that's how I feel. I do not imagine a life without her. I definitely need her, and maybe there's codependency there, but it doesn't feel sick. So, I mean, there were times. I think we've grown, and there were times where I probably would define it as codependent. I've actually talked about relationships that a relationship should start in a codependent place. Like the baby of a relationship is more codependent than the later on in the relationship where it becomes more interdependent. I don't think it starts interdependence. But anyway, that's all me. But I want you to explain. That's why it really resonates with me. And I wanted you to explain, what does that mean? If I need somebody, isn't that the definition of codependency?
Well,
yeah.
I have so many questions about what you just shared, especially like the
Go for
theory
it.
of it starting,
And
then
I
transitioning.
just threw that in like a
I'm
little
so
extra.
curious. Yeah, I want to hear more.
Yeah.
When I hear this love that you have for your wife, and I don't know what it feels like for you for something to feel sick, or what it feels like for you for something to feel healthy, but even in that statement, that feels very black and white, right? We love to put things in bento boxes, right? Especially like these controlling parts of us love bento boxes, but life has 1,000 shades of gray. So even in that statement, it can't. It's not black and white. We're either like this is codependent, or that's a healthy relationship. There's 1,000,000 shades of gray,
Right.
many of which we can actually heal in relationship. And when I hear about this love that you hear with your wife, it warms my heart, and I think about what is, for so many people, and I can't speak for everybody, it takes such a sense of safety to be vulnerable and to share that type of love, right? If that makes any sense, to be able to be seen, to be loved, to rely on somebody deeply, like that takes an internal strength. When I hear about this, this idea that we don't need people. We shouldn't need people. To need people is codependent. That's actually called anti-dependence, right? Which is actually the same side of the same.
What is anti-dependence? Sorry.
Anti-dependence is oftentimes somebody who grows up learning these core beliefs about themselves and the world and people and relationships, which oftentimes look something like people aren't coming. To have needs, to have the need for connection is too painful. So I'm either going to disconnect from it to the point where I don't have any needs. I'm so easygoing, whatever you want. But I can't actually tell you what I need because I don't know. I am disconnected from my need because being connected to my need has been so painful. No one came, right? So we grow into adults who believe like, I'm the best person for the job. Like, you know what I mean? It's how scary it is to be vulnerable and to need to ask for help, or to need to lean on somebody, or to need to call somebody during a hard moment, right? What if they're not there for me? What if they judge me? What if they reject me? Right? That's what comes up for me when I think of like, I don't need anybody.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
So we do need people.
Yes, we are social beings.
So what's the difference between need and, okay, let's ask a different, just one other way is, let's say someone comes to me and says, I like pot. Well, one of the questions I would ask, do you need pot or do you want pot? It's two different questions. It's two different realities. Some people will smoke pot every couple of months and it's fine, or even more often, and it's fine. And then some people, they literally can't get up and move through the day without smoking some pot. Yeah. So is the need the unhealthy part? Like that, when I talk about my wife to people, besides the fact that everybody's like hoping, this is terrible. They have like this evil, like anybody who like talks great about their relationship is like kind of like secretly waiting for it to end. But that's a different story. I hope that doesn't happen. But it's like who are you? The truth is, I could ask myself, who am I without my wife? I don't really know. I'm sure I am somebody. I was someone before my wife. But my reality is that she's my people. That's my micro community, and it gets bigger and bigger. So I think that when I hear about codependency, I struggle because, and the Orthodox community also struggles with this because we are taught such a value of kindness and being kind to people, and we need people, and we're always there for people. But then you say, wait, whoa, now it's too much. Now it's codependency. So where is that line? You're saying that there's 50 Shades of Grey.
There are 50 Shades of Grey, and yet there are lines. There are lines, and they're actually very different for each person. I work with people who want me to tell them where their line is and what that looks like and what that feels like for them. And I'm like, can't. Sorry, that needs to come from your inner compass, your own intuition. And the only person who needs to sit with that deeply and truly is you, right? When I think of intimacy, I think of it being a relationship between two equals. Right? That doesn't mean that we share the same strengths or the same weaknesses, right? But are on a soul level, like we both are worthy individuals, and it's a shoulder to shoulder relationship. I'm not above you, you're not below me, you're not above me, etc. And in order for me to truly be seen, I'm a person. I have a self. In order for me to truly see you, I'm a person who has a self.
Right.
That makes sense.
It makes sense.
And that's how we have a we, is by two whole individuals coming together and sharing that space.
It's interesting that you said it. What struck me is that if I have to change you, then it's not an equal relationship. That's what struck me. I know if I might be going off there on something, but
I'll roll with it though. So caution, just caution to the wind here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's if I have to change you, then I got to try to pull you into my equal or get you to be different. Then it's a little bit, that's a tricky one.
Oh, that's a whole podcast in and of itself, because for me, a personal value that I hold close to my heart is I want to love people exactly as they are. And there is space for me to be vulnerable and share preferences. People confuse preferences sometimes for boundaries. Boundaries are what I allow in my life, right? A boundary is not, I'm now going to tell you what to do or what I need, right? It's what am I willing to tolerate? What am I allowed to have? And what am I okay having in my life? So while I want to love people exactly as they are, like core self, I can practice being vulnerable enough to say, hey, when I see you on your phone, when we're together, I feel upset. The story I make up is that I'm not important to you, right? And give somebody the opportunity to clarify. And I could say, like, I prefer if we could spend time without our phones and really connect. They don't have to meet me there, right? And that's where some of this like codependency healing comes from, is when I have this relationship with myself that's deep enough, and the way that I see it and the way that I practice is, let's say a worst case scenario happens and somebody is like, no, I'm not going to do that thing. I'm not going to meet you there. I'm not going to honor your need or your want. And like maybe if I had a rejection wound growing up, there might be a little sting here.
What's a rejection wound?
Growing up.
You're saying a lot of words that I know what they mean, but I realize I'm listening as if I don't know.
Please, yes. Please do. Rejection wound is like when there's a rejection wound, there's a sensitivity around being rejected, right? That's a old feeling, an old pattern, right? Something that was common, perhaps frequent growing up, perhaps a child who often, wanted to be seen and kind of got the message like, shoo, you know what I mean? Like, we're busy, you're not that important, your needs aren't that important, or they were bullied growing up, or stuff like that can create this rejection wound.
Right. Yeah. I just had someone on, he was talking about trauma that he had went through, and he didn't tell anybody, right? Mm-hmm. I think that was a rejection wound that was created weirdly by him, but he had an explanation of these weren't the people that felt safe enough to tell. Exactly. So therefore, didn't even have to get rejected. He like preempted the rejection.
I had a teacher one time say to me, oftentimes our worst fears have already happened. And I think about that all the time, right? So perhaps he had already experienced rejection or gotten the message, you will be rejected. And how sad it is that this person really didn't have relationships that felt safe enough. I've heard that so many times.
Right. Yeah, I felt that in my childhood a lot. Okay, let me switch topics for one. Not switch topics, but I want to go to the Jewish community. First of all, why do you work with the Jewish community? The Orthodox Jewish community. You are, are you part of the Orthodox Jewish community? I don't know. I'm asking. Yes.
No.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
yesing because I'm like, yes, keep going.
Keep going
I'm
with
just
the
feeling
question.
the conversation.
Okay. I don't know how you identify in the community. Steinfeld sounds Jewish to me. So that I assumed. That's as far as I go with the assumptions.
Yeah.
But I know I've heard your name so many times. My assumption is that you are flooded with the Orthodox Jewish community and dealing with these topics. Is that a good assumption?
Good assumption.
Okay.
And you nailed it with the last name, definitely Jewish.
Jewish.
I am definitely Jewish. I am not in the Jewish Orthodox community. Although I do chuckle because I feel like I spend so much time. Even my friends that I've gotten to meet through work, when it's Shabbos, I'm like, I miss everybody. And then it's Motzei Shabbos, and I'm like, oh, everybody's coming back to me now. So
You're forced to keep Shabbos.
I am.
I can't do anything.
Like, no one's gonna call me. No one's gonna text me. I'm so lonely.
That's so hilarious.
Yeah. And why? The question of why?
Yeah. Why do you end up? I guess that's a how question. Maybe.
God.
How did that happen? It just.
God, and it makes me emotional.
Does it?
It does. I feel it just happened. It just happened. Forces greater than myself, forces larger than myself, and being able to say yes even when things scare me, and befriend fear. I mean, that's been like a part of my whole career. Like knowing that fear is not always bad or always an indication that something is like dangerous. Sometimes it's a sign for me personally that I'm growing. So really just being open-hearted, and God, that's all really. Just
Okay.
God, I don't know how it happened or why it happened, but I feel very, very blessed.
So God sent you all these Orthodox people.
But
But
I do know, or at least an assumption or a theory that I've created is, one, I feel like we connect very well. There's like a very authentic connection that happens. And I don't think that people would stay if that was not the case. I think they feel understood. I've spent a lot of time learning and all of that stuff. But a theory I have is that there is a comfort knowing that nobody is going to run into me at shul.
okay.
I feel like that's like there's a sense of safety there.
That's true. I had that similar because all my work was in Brooklyn. And in Brooklyn, we were having 600-700 kids a year. I run a bigger program in Brooklyn called Our Place. And everybody knew me in Brooklyn. Then I moved to Muncie and I became invisible, which I loved. It's like people maybe heard that I did some work, but now it's over because now I have a podcast and I call myself Muncie famous because everybody like knows me in the supermarket. But when that period of time, the 10 years where I was invisible and I could work with people, but they didn't bump into me every day, was really nice.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I guess what I'm excited about is that you're seeing this from an outside perspective. Maybe at this point you're inside because it's been so long, but you've seen this from an outside perspective. Could you what are your observations with the community and this? Like, what's specific about the Orthodox community are struggles with intimacy, with love, with addiction, with sex addiction, with love addiction, all that stuff? What are you seeing that may be different than other communities?
I'm going to sit with this one for a moment.
Okay.
It's all over the map. All over the map.
Too much.
Well,
You can go wherever you want with it.
So granted, I have worked almost exclusively with the Jewish Orthodox population now for almost 5 years. So I'm sure I would have a handful of observations if I was working, let's say, with the Mormon community, right?
Right.
Some of the struggles that I see my clients grappling with, if you will, as it relates to, I'm trying to think of which one to bebop first. I always go to sex first. I don't know.
Well, it's the most interesting.
It's interesting. And I think I also feel very passionate about shame reduction,
Okay.
specifically with the clients that I work with.
Ooh, I like that.
That's one of the pieces that gets me a little fired up. So I think that's why I go to sex first, for both men and women, actually. Many of the clients that I've worked with, when I ask them about their sex education, they look at me like I have 10 heads, and I ask that question on purpose, right?
Right.
Because unfortunately, I don't have many clients reporting to me much of anything, to be honest. Right. And so we get to explore what was that like for you, right? So in this absence of having age appropriate conversations with somebody that you feel like safe enough with, that you trust, what did you make up, right? What did you make up about that thing we don't talk about, that thing we kind of maybe know, right? Where was the first time that you learned about it? We start to explore all of these questions and start to understand like how people are relating to sex, how people are relating to their own bodies, to themselves as a like all of it. We explore all of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And in majority of the time, they have almost little to no sex education.
Mm-hmm.
How much you think that matters?
I think it matters tremendously.
Right.
I think it matters tremendously, because what I have seen and what I've experienced is people are filling in the blanks. I mean, think about what it was like to be a teenager or a preteen, right?
I remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long time ago, but I remember.
Yeah.
Right. With no, right.
Mm-hmm. And anybody who's listening, take a moment and think back also of what that was like. You are a human, deserving of respect and having all of these changes happening over a period of time in your body. Like, how do we even make sense of that? How do we make sense of what our body is telling us? Right?
Right.
And I wish that we could invite healthy conversation in an age-appropriate way where we can teach really healthy, loving limits from a place of education. I have seen people disown this part of themselves, the sexual part of themselves.
What do you mean disown it?
Almost like cut it off. Like, okay, here I am. I'm a good Jewish boy or a good Jewish man, doing all the other things.
Right.
But I'm going to do these things over here as long as nobody knows. In fact, I've been doing them secretly for a very long time anyways.
Right.
Right. And so I see that happen. I see their...
Yeah, it's one of the things I see a tremendous amount with sex addiction is the dual personality. They're like, I am two different people. The interesting thing that I find is that they usually identify with the other one, that gross one that does gross, terrible, shameful acts. That's really who I am. And if you really knew, you would never love me, which causes that wound to get so much bigger. So again, we're back to the rejection wound and so it's building. And then this other one becomes the front, the facade. Right? And that's like 90% of your life, but that's the fake.
And it's actually very much so related to all of it, codependency, and the importance of in intimacy, there is an authenticity. When there's true and deep intimacy, I am not only showing you the parts that are easy for me to love, right? I'm showing you the parts that are hard for me to love. And hopefully you love them too. And that is so tremendously healing.
Sure.
That feeling of being deeply seen and maybe a little nervous about it, right? What's going to happen when I let this person really see me? Are they going to leave? Are they going to run? And being loved anyways.
Right. It's kind of terrifying.
So scary.
Yeah. No, I that part in the 12 steps where, in most sex addiction programs tell you that you should disclose to your loved ones, or at least your wife or your husband or whatever, some of these deepest things. That is where a lot of people I work with just get stuck, and they all know stories of people that did not accept them with that stuff, which is interesting. I will tell you an interesting observation that I have, because I'm dealing with in the homes, I'm dealing with people with process addictions like sex addictions and for example, and food addiction and all that. And then people who are dealing with substance addictions. And the fascinating thing I have found in the Orthodox community, and tell me, is that the people with the process addictions they do this split more than everybody else. And one of the ways you could see it is they generally stay looking religious. Meaning the people addicted to alcohol or substances, their whole dress and maybe how much they'll keep Shabbos or they'll do any of those things, it all goes. And I find it much healthier because they're congruent. They're not incongruent. So like they're all like, oh, all of me is not doing well. I'm not faking. This is who I am. I don't like who I am, but it is who I am. And then the ones with the more shameful ones are splitting. They're saying this is to the world. It's always fascinating. I'm sure you've had it that people that the whole world respects and everybody just thinks they're incredible. They have these great thoughts about them, and then you meet them in the office and they think of themselves horribly. And if the world knew the things they were doing, they would be absolutely shocked. You don't see this with substance addictions. That's the interesting thing.
A lot harder to hide at times for many people. I think with a substance.
I don't think they're hiding because I don't think it's the same shame. That's what I'm thinking. I think it was interesting. I was speaking to Faith about a similar topic, and she was saying that evolutionary. There are two parts of evolution that it's about survival. This was her thought. And food and sex we need for our survival. And therefore the community has no tolerance for deviation in those areas. Like anything. So this is not just a Jewish thing, or it's every culture says if you mess with our two main resources for survival, you're out. And therefore, it's like a built-in shame, which every culture pretty much has. And I think, I don't know what you think about that, but I thought that was fascinating. And that could be the separation.
Interesting.
I don't know if you ever thought about it.
I would have to sit with that and
it was
think
new
about
for
that.
me.
Yeah.
It was new for me. I thought it was quite fascinating because I think, to me, substances should be much more shameful. I need food and sex. I don't need to use heroin. Like, you should be much more ashamed of yourself for doing something to destroy your life and everybody around you for your own pleasure or something like that. But I do, like, if I mess up on something, we're all messing. We all have a little bit of food addiction. We all eat a little bit too much when we shouldn't, or,
We live in a very addicted world.
Right.
It's the norm.
Right.
Right? It's like we can't stand online without being on our phones.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's get down to definitions. I told you I'd get back to that because I am. So when you're talking about, like, the world is very cynical about, like, something like sex addiction. The world is like, every superstar who decides, cheating on his wife is going to rehab for sex addiction. Like, come on. Is it, like, what really defines something to be a process addiction, or this guy's just cheating on his wife? Like, you understand the question?
Yes.
What's the definition of this?
So the definition of a process addiction, let me think about which way I should go here. When I am in a process addiction, I can't stop. Right? Similarly to a substance use addiction, I feel like there's a space in any addiction that is, everybody's journey is different, but for many people, there can be a space when somebody's in an addiction where it's actually can be a little bit quite, it's working, if you will. But then when you get to a certain point, you start to make promises to yourself, like, I'm going to stop. This is going to be the last time. This inability to stop, no matter how many promises we make to ourselves, even when it's causing negative consequences to us. And that need feels so great and so important that I think we can actually, let that guide us and almost turn into that other person, right? Into like our really embody that shadow, like these darker parts of ourselves. So we'll go after that what feels like a need, no matter what, no matter if we're hurting ourselves, no matter if we're hurting the people we love. Sometimes I think when we're so deep into addiction, our hearts can get a little hardened, if you will. Like the denial around addiction and this need becomes so great that we can actually create these stories in our minds that we're not hurting anybody, right? The only person I'm hurting is myself. So why do people care, right? So there's like some of that denial. I know that people, when we struggle with addiction, we can actually be in what I would call like an altered reality. Like we're not even in reality. Does it make sense when I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When somebody's struggling specifically with sex addiction, I think this is true for any process addiction. There can be like feelings of depression, feelings of shame that follow these behaviors, right? Whether it's food, it's I did it again, right?
Right.
Man, it filled my emptiness for a moment, but now I feel worse. I feel more empty.
Right.
Yeah.
Brian Regan has a joke where he was talking about serving sizes, and he says, "I eat till I hate myself."
There you go.
That was his line.
What a barometer. Yeah.
It's like serving size of the ice cream is when the spoon hits the bottom of the cardboard.
Yep. When there's no more left and the limit has been set.
And I eat till I hate myself. Okay. You want to hear about that I think every relationships have codependency?
That all relationships, I do, especially because I feel like this, I'm curious. A lot of therapists even that I've heard talk about codependency, I've heard so many people being like, codependency is not real, prodependency. And I'm like, I feel like we're not understanding.
Prodependency.
Yes.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a whole thing, but it's funny. I won't even go down that rabbit hole right now.
Go.
I'm like, go out in the left field.
If something pisses you off, say it.
I feel like people do not understand what codependency means. So if I may define what codependency means,
good.
I'm going to do this. Thank you.
Go.
Codependency, I feel like people have this idea that it means, oh, you need someone else. You can never be alone. That is not what codependency means.
I'm in. That's why I started this podcast.
But that is not what codependency means. Codependency, I'm going to break down in the most simple way that I can in 5 symptoms. 1, difficulties with self-esteem. Either I feel better than people or less than people, or I'm vacillating between the two. I'm living my life and I see that person, they drive a nicer car than me, so I'm less than them, right? Or that person, they drive a worse car than me, like I'm above them. So it's this fluctuating sense of self-esteem. Okay, that's the first symptom. The second one is difficulties with boundaries. Either I have porous boundaries, and when I'm with you, for example, Sunny, anything you tell me is now my truth. Any opinion you have, any feeling you have, now I'm taking it on as my truth. I've completely lost myself, right? Or I'm boundaryless, and even though you might have some really fantastic ideas, I'm not listening because I've got a wall up, right? So you can have like a primary, you could lean towards a primary. You could either be primarily walled off, really rigid boundaries, like no one's reaching me, no one's touching me. Like I might be there, but people aren't really, I'm not feeling deeply connected.
So is accepting your ideas as my own a way of separating myself from you?
So
That's an interesting one.
when
It's
we're
like completely cleaving to you.
when we're in interdependence, if I'm in interdependence and I'm grounded in self, I can be here deeply with you.
Gotcha.
I can be curious about what you're feeling. I can actually listen to an idea that might be different than mine. And if I find it like interesting, I get to say, I'm going to sit with this. Like and if this feels true, like maybe I'm going to like shift a little bit. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. And I'm going to let that go. Right. And also knowing that if we're here together and we have a different belief on something, we can still connect. And this can still be a beautiful relationship.
Right.
Room for differences, room for learning and growing. So difficulties with boundaries. That also includes like if I'm with you, let's say you're struggling with some difficult feelings, like I am trying to jump and fix and change, and because I actually don't feel okay if you're not okay. Right? In codependency, I need you to feel a certain way so I feel okay. Or
what's that codependency joke where a wife wakes up and says, "Good morning, honey. How do we feel today?"
I love it. It's hysterical.
I got a better one that I don't know if you're gonna like, but I invented it myself.
Oh, please share.
A codependency you're only up to 2, by the way. I'm saying there are 5.
That's okay.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
Keep you in there. But my codependency doll, which I'm never going to be able to do because I mentioned it before on the podcast also. But it's a doll that you throw it up against the wall and it says, "I'm sorry." I'm sorry. Okay.
Should I just carry it with me? And if I like take up a little too much space, just throw the doll. And they can say, "I'm sorry
for me."
and the dog
goes, "I'm sorry."
Yeah, it's perfect.
It's a terrible doll.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
And can I ask anybody who's listening if you have a codependency joke to put it in the comments?
Oh my God, that'd be awesome.
I would love. Please humor me. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, there you go. I don't know where I went with. Okay, okay, I lost you. But when I listen, I'll listen again. What were you up to? I think like the 3rd definition.
So the third
fourth,
symptom is difficulties with interdependence, right? Difficulties asking for help, or difficulties meeting one's own needs.
Oh my God! Shoot, I'm like ticking it off.
That's what
I'm
happens.
a professional codependent.
Welcome.
I turned it into a career.
Welcome. So many therapists.
I'm addicted to addicts.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
But what a beautiful thing.
No,
I wouldn't say. I mean, there's fine lines. As in honor of Dick Schwartz's work with parts work, we get to unburden these parts. And what was my heavy, soul-sucking, codependent part is now a very open-hearted, empathetic woman. I can still care deeply about people, but today it's not like keeping me up at night, and I'm not canceling commitments to save them.
Right.
I can caring
You've
about.
seen that change in your career? I don't know if you wanted to get too involved.
Oh, in myself?
Yeah.
It's been a long journey.
Okay.
I'm not like a therapist who knows this stuff only from books. I'm a therapist I wanted to be a therapist since I was like 7. How do you even know it? I didn't even like.
You did the field research.
I did it exactly by being a family therapist before I was certified.
Right.
Yeah. So.
You wanted to be a therapist since you're 7?
Since I was so young.
Oh my God.
I don't know the specific age. Yeah. I was like, how did I even know what that was?
It's weird.
I didn't even go to one.
My daughter used to charge the neighbors' kids for therapy sessions. I'm not even joking.
What an entrepreneur. Adorable.
And a parent from next door called me like, "How dare your kid? Is my kid like took money from my pocketbook to pay for your kid's therapy session?"
Listen.
And I was like, maybe you should send your kid to therapy.
Exactly.
Kid's asking for it.
Exactly. We should honor these needs and wants.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
It's funny. You know Trisha Tia? Do you know the name?
No.
Okay. She's like my mentor. She's a therapist. And she had coming over and she actually paid my daughter for a session. So I'm just saying.
Does she have room for one more?
She didn't move for one more. They were phenomenal.
Because I think I have some space before I hit the airport.
Now she wants to be a lawyer, but which is better.
Good to know.
Much more money.
Perfect combination. Because the perfect combo. Can she like merge the two?
Yeah. Usually the merging is like not so great.
Oh no.
Because you do therapy, professional to whatever.
No, I'm hoping like a therapeutic lawyer, like somebody. If I ever had a legal issue, would be like everything's gonna be fine, and then like gets down to business, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Every lawyer is like, I cannot guarantee results at all.
Exactly. You're going to
Actually,
jail. Just
wait a
kidding.
minute. That's not so different than a therapist.
That's true.
I cannot guarantee any results.
I can't. And
Sorry.
And I'm not going to fix you either. People are like, please. I'm kidding. But
Yeah, so I will say that most therapists I know have to go through this codependency stuff. Like, it is not natural for a human being to want to take care of 1,000 human beings.
yeah, it's
That's
heavy.
how I think.
And that's the beautiful part of the healing work is that when I'm in interdependence, my capacity is so much larger. I'm with you, but I'm not feeling for you. And that hurts people. If I was in codependence when I was with a client, I'm going to try to change them. I'm going to try to fix them. I'm going to take away their right for their own journey. And the way that I see these difficult feelings are like everybody, they're not just a-holes that come to hurt us, which I thought when I was growing up because I didn't have a lot of emotion regulation and it was too much for me, right? So I just thought like these are bad. These difficult emotions are bad and I need to do whatever it is to get rid of them, no matter the cost, to survive. But when I let somebody have their own difficult feelings, like I'm trusting almost like the God within them as an individual and also like the message that they're supposed to get from whatever it is that can guide their change and their healing.
Right. I like that, what you said with the God stuff. If I allow you to be you, then I'm respecting the God within you. You're saying,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. And who am I to interrupt that? I'm with you.
Yeah.
But I'm not taking you away. And I do hope that my presence and our co-regulation can maybe make this pain a little bit more tolerable because we don't need to suffer, right? There's a difference between pain and suffering.
Right. I will say from my own experience, codependency is exhausting. It's really trying to make everybody change to get exactly what you need for your fix is like, this is the whole theory that I have why people go into other addictions is because all addictions start at codependency and then it's exhausting and I can't control people as much as I can control a pill or a bottle or that's what I can control. That's where
1,000%.
Right. So why are you upset? You were like you were upset about the codependency thing and like the prodependency. Like what's getting you charged up with the codependency? And then you went into definition. You calmed all down.
Oh, I
want to take you back to your activation space because I want to know what was it that you got upset about.
Yes, I get upset that people discourage codependency healing because they have their own opinions. That they're allowed to have their own opinions. But unfortunately, I feel like people but they're wrong. Suck. Just kidding. Yeah, they differ from mine.
You're allowed to have it, but it sucks.
Exactly. And I'm not willing to tolerate it. You can have what you want, but don't come here. I feel like people are staying stuck in it and they're hurting and they're getting sick and they're miserable and they're resentful and their relationships are suffering because somebody is sitting across from them saying, prodependency, when in reality, this person is overgiving to the point that they're exhausted. They're getting sick. You know what I mean? And I could go on and on and on.
Right.
But also part of codependency is like I struggle with knowing my sense of self, right? I struggle to know where I start and end and where you begin. We merge, and not like in a beautiful way where like our souls are dancing together. We can keep that. That does not fall into the category of codependency.
We're enmeshed.
Yes, enmeshed, where it's like, how dare you have a different opinion? How dare you be upset? I need you to be happy this evening because I'm not happy if you're not happy.
Right.
I think it is healthy to let your heart be touched, right? If I see somebody I love or care about struggling, like, I'm going to feel it, but I'm also okay. I'm okay, and I can hold that space for them. And I feel like I just want relationships. And these clients that I work with that get married or have been married for many years, I think they get to choose what they want in their life. They have autonomy. But I think in relationships, having that space to have our feelings, especially for those who did not have that in childhood, is so important.
Right.
Having a partner who doesn't like wound us in the same way that our parents did. And if we do, and oftentimes we do it because we parent ourselves and relate to other people in the way that we were parented, and it's no one's fault, but that doesn't mean it needs to continue.
Right.
So that might mean if I'm in a relationship or I'm in a marriage where somebody's, kind of trying to change my feelings, or I'm feeling like I'm not welcome here if I'm sad today, even though something happened, that it is a healthy emotional response to be sad. I might get to say like, hey, honey, like it's important for me to be able to be sad about this. Right?
Right.
Go to sleep and tomorrow's a new day.
So I just say, like, if you want to be sad, it's fine. Just don't do it in the house where I can see you. No, I'm kidding.
Go to the shed.
Go somewhere else and be sad. It's hurting me.
Exactly.
So if I am, oh gosh, I should probably say these things are jokes afterwards, but we have a line here that I invented, which is there's a little joke to every joke. It's a little variation. There's a little truth to every joke, because I don't think there's much. I don't think there's much anything else but the truth. Anyway, so okay, and if I am a person in a marriage, and I'm being as kind and as wonderful as I could be, and at what point, what am I going to feel to be like, hey, there's a problem here? Like, what is it? Because codependency is a really subtle like issue. Like, it's really hard to know when you headed in there. I mean, it's easy to know if you're snorting cocaine that it became a problem. This is, I'm being kind. What would be the symptoms that I know? I guess you were saying it in a much bigger way with the 5 symptoms, but I'm saying, like, what am I gonna feel?
Resentment.
What?
Resentment. Tired. Probably a wavering sense of self-esteem, honestly. A lot of it.
But doesn't everybody feel all these things? I mean, I'm saying, so is there something that you like? It's really hard. It's really hard to know. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, we're raising kids. We have 3 jobs. We're exhausted. We're so exhausted. We're resentment. Like, I should be climbing the Himalayas right now, having a nice vacation. I haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. I would feel resentment. Like, I feel like everybody's gonna feel this stuff. You know what I mean? That's what I mean.
If somebody is not actively using other substances, I believe that somebody might be able to notice when they are giving to the point of exhaustion. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people have been, these codependent like behaviors and ways of relating are very normalized. So many of us grow up in homes where it's like, what? You're not going to do what I say? You're not going to come to my house for this holiday? Right? And so they've become very normalized. And so sometimes people are shocked when I say, like, it doesn't have to be like that. So how will people know? I do think that honestly, step 1 is learning what codependency is and asking yourself, do I relate to any of these?
Right.
Do I relate to any of these? And then the second question is, how is that impacting you? How is that impacting your relationships? Just because somebody's struggling with codependency doesn't even mean that they need to do anything about it.
Really?
It's up to them. But that's where the pain comes in. That's where the resentment comes in.
Right. If you want to sit with it, you can.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do that with any addiction.
Absolutely.
Okay, I got you.
This is actually usually when clients perk up the most, is when I say, you can do that.
Right.
No. I'm like, wait a minute. You were just fighting me like 5 minutes ago.
Right.
And then when I'm like, you have autonomy. You have a choice. You can do whatever it is that you want.
Okay, so now let's go more into your work where you get a couple. This is actually interesting because most of the work I do is individual. It's not couples. And actually, I make a lot of jokes about the fact that I'm terrible at couples.
Me too. So caution. I don't work with couples.
Oh, you don't work with couples?
No.
Okay, fine. I'll still say the question,
You can
but
say
a
the
little
question.
differently.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that couples work, it's more important to do individual work to fix your marriage than it is to do marriage work to fix your marriage.
And sometimes couples work can be the question. I need you to be a certain way, so that way I feel okay.
Meaning, what do you mean? That like you're being sent
No.
during couples work.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Are you seeing, okay,
Mhm.
I see situations where marriage is just an absolute disaster.
Mhm.
I had a professor who said that he stopped doing couples work because he just thought everybody was coming in to just get divorced. Like they needed somebody to say, you guys should get divorced. So he just like, he's so sick of it. He's like, if you want to fix your marriage, come to me. If you want to get divorced, don't come to me. Go to a lawyer. So that was, he got kind of bitter about it. And I don't feel that bitter about it, but are you seeing people coming in with disastrous marriages that are like absolutely like at the end, and then by shifting themselves, marriage is working again? I mean, are you seeing that, or is it like
I'm seeing both.
you're seeing both?
I'm seeing both.
Okay,
Mhm.
but what would you say? Like, what is it that the people who are making it work and the people who aren't making it work? What's the difference?
I'm thinking about one couple right now. They are both really dedicated. They're both doing the work independently,
Right.
and things are changing. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything more beautiful than when the couples change.
Yeah.
That's it. I like, even though I don't think I could do the couples work.
Mhm.
So I had this funny story where I had a client of mine brought in his girlfriend, and he said he wanted to like do a couple session. I agreed, and then they came in, and I sat there for maybe the first half hour with my mouth like held open, watching them say the most horrible things to each other, like
Yeah.
you can't even imagine. And then they find, like, I don't think I said anything for the first half hour. I was completely shell shocked. I had no experience, and they said, "Okay, what do you think? What's your professional opinion?" And I'm like, my professional opinion is in the last half hour, you guys, between both of you, have said 50 things that would have ended my marriage.
Yeah.
I cannot believe you. I'm like, you guys should not be together. This is horrible the way you're treating each other.
Yeah.
I couldn't,
Oh, yeah.
but I guess now we try to save that.
Okay.
Maybe, but then I was like, why are you guys even with each other? I didn't really understand.
Which I think is a
codependency.
fantastic question.
Yeah.
Why are you guys? And I give myself permission to be quite human with my clients. I'm not like, hello, how does that make you feel from this like towering fancy chair?
Right.
Yeah, why? Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Did you ask it?
Why they're together?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, that was a bomb session. I would say I choked. I just said, guys, just break up.
Yeah.
They weren't married. They had no kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then they told me I was an idiot, and then they broke up 2 weeks later.
Okay, nice. Well, I mean, it sounds like you mirrored back some realities. You know, it didn't. Yeah.
It was not the highlight of my career. I didn't like do anything good. I just remember thinking I can never do couples work.
Yeah.
I have no idea what to say. I also feel weird being in the room while they're going through this. It feels like an intimate experience. I'm like, should I be here?
You want me to
You
step
guys
away?
need some room here?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay, I'll have to get the next couples therapist to answer that question. Okay, no, it's very good to hear that there's some success here. Well, let's take the topic of a guy telling his wife, or a wife telling a husband, like what they, exposing all the stuff they've done.
Mm-hmm.
How do you usually see that going?
So the way that I, with the client, determine whether we share all of the things or not is, does the partner want to know? We start there. We need to get permission. We need to make sure that the partner wants to know. Are you talking about specifically that somebody's like struggling with addiction, or are we talking about like a formal disclosure?
A formal disclosure with addiction. What do you mean?
So in the CSAT world, like the certified sex addiction therapy world, we
Right.
have this process that's called a formal disclosure,
Right.
where what we call the betrayed partner can ask. They can be informed of what's available to them, and then they can really choose what they want. It's a formal disclosure where the person struggling with addiction shares, right, about their history and answers questions that the betrayed partner wants to know about their history, the origins of a sex addiction, for instance,
Right.
and really like comes clean. I have seen that be my personal experience, and I know that other like CSATs have had different ones. It does not always go like this, but I've seen it be shifting. I mean, it's not done for the sake of, okay, here's a bunch of information. It's done for the sake of, this is actually a very intimate experience. It's a bit intense, and not all intimacy needs to feel this intense or should feel this intense, but a formal disclosure of opening up is an intimacy that oftentimes people have never experienced in their marriage for the first time ever. Even before the addictions may or may not have started, there can be a closeness that's felt like they never have before. So I'm not saying like, go develop a sex addiction and you're going to be like intimately connected with your wife, but it can be a really like life-changing, shame-reducing experience.
Are you seeing the spouses stick around?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I know a lot of people have asked me that, so it's
Oh, yeah.
it's not I'm not so deeply into that I can answer that question.
Yeah.
But it's good to know that.
Very much so.
Okay, so again, I'm going to take you back to, I don't know if this is an Orthodox community question, but there are many, many older single people now that I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of theories.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking you to explain what we call the
Mm-hmm.
shidduch crisis.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm dealing with a lot of people that have this fear of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you deal with. I mean,
Every
obviously,
day.
every day. Could you explain what's happening there? You have people going into relationships, they're trying, and then something's stopping them. Could you explain what's happening here?
Yeah. This is also another entire podcast. So
Okay, everything. Well, we'll go for 5 hours. We got 5
Perfect.
hours.
Perfect.
Just kidding, we don't.
So I think that our capacity for intimacy and closeness starts when we're tiny peepees, right? It's something that starts way before I'm 20 or 19 or 18. It gets like nurtured in your family of origin, right? So if I grow up in a home where I can feel known, right? Not just for like my good grades or my accomplishments, but known for who I am, warts and all, I'm going to have a much greater chance of developing like an self-esteem that's inward, right? And more room for being imperfect. And that's a prerequisite for connection. It is vulnerability, right? And if I grow up in a home where we're talking about stuff, right? We're having conversations. I'm going to, like real conversations. I can go to my family or even my friends when there's difficulties or I'm struggling. That's intimacy, right? Unfortunately, people grow up in homes that can be, they can have food, delicious food, clothes, nice clothes, right? A beautiful home, lots of toys, fancy this, fancy that, but didn't experience like that emotional closeness growing up.
Mm-hmm.
That can definitely be like one of the major seeds of developing an intimacy issue or intimacy issues or struggles with intimacy. And so when we grow up, intimacy issues, which manifest so many different ways. I mean, we could also go into like attachment styles, right? So if I struggle with intimacy issues, I could have developed an avoidant attachment style, where I have this need for connection, but I've learned how to detach from it, again, because no one was coming. That closeness was not available to me. And then I might be able to like start this relationship with someone, and it's awesome because things aren't like that deep or that serious yet. And it's wonderful. So much fun. We're having a great time.
Why is it so much fun?
Because
I'm saying this.
it's fun because getting to know someone is fun. We've got like oxytocin and all these happy joy chemicals being released, and we're having a great time.
Is it more fun than any people, or are you just saying in general starting is fun?
Starting a relationship.
Okay, gotcha.
But it's all good until that relationship or that commitment deepens. And then somebody who struggles with some avoidant traits might start to engage in what's called a deactivating strategy. So it's starting to find things about the other person that they don't like, no matter how insignificant. I don't like their shoes. I don't like how they laugh, or looking for something to deactivate.
Like the Steinfeld syndrome.
What is that?
You know, I made it up. I said it like it's a thing. Jerry Seinfeld in every episode has a problem with every girl he's dating. Her toe is a little longer.
There you go.
Maybe she like has a little lisp or something. He finds something and then he's out.
Exactly, because if somebody struggles with and I can't wait to rewatch some of it with like a whole new lens.
You could probably just Google, not like search for every time Jerry breaks up. I bet you they have something. You'll see.
Exactly. And that's because when I start to get close to somebody, I start to fear that they are going to engulf me. They are going to enmesh me. I'm going to have to lose my autonomy and my sense of self, because that's what the nervous system remembers being like relationships as. Does this make sense based on our family of origin?
It makes sense, but I feel like it would come more from an enmeshed relationship where you were not acknowledged, your emotions were not acknowledged because you were stuck to, let's say, a mother figure, or where you weren't considered you weren't individuated from your parent and said you were allowed to be your own person. Is that what you're saying? Similar to that?
Yes, exactly.
It wasn't that it was just they were cold. It was that that you're supposed to be this for me so that I could be all right. Me, a codependent from parent to child.
Absolutely, exactly.
So they don't want to get swallowed up again.
Yes. That's not true intimacy, though, being parentified as a child. But yes. Does that make sense when I say that?
Intimacy between a parent and a child? I mean, it's weird because I would call it like unhealthy intimacy. I don't know that it's not the intimacy we want. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. I mean, it's still very intimate. It's just you're running for the hills because I don't want that.
Yes. Yes. Whenever I talk about intimacy, I always look at it through the lens of like healthy, like a healthy definition, healthy intimacy.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Gotcha.
we can go with it. We're both saying different things.
Okay.
Same
it's
names,
fine.
different names, same things. Yes.
I just want to let you know I'm completely fine with you saying a different opinion than me.
Thank you.
Because I'm that
How
healthy.
non-codependent. How
Because I am so healthy.
you are so interdependent. Yes. Yes.
I have like such independence. It's unbelievable. If you say something, I will think about it and consider it.
Honored.
That's myself. I'm just saying for myself.
But you did nail it, right? That's how somebody can create avoidant traits of like, wow, that toe is way too long. I'm hitting the road.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm seeing, what I see a lot is, I love you till you love me back. Could you explain that? It's like it's the chase is incredible, and then whoa, okay, now this is serious.
Exactly.
So that's what you're explaining?
Exactly. Yes. So it could, I broke down a little bit of like our attachment, because somebody who's securely attached or knows how to practiced earned secure attachment stuff, if you will, is going to be like, this is great. I love you and you love me back. And I'm going to let you see me and I'm going to see you. Yeah, sure. It might be scary at moments, yada, 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 but like, I'm here for it. But somebody who struggles with like attachment issues are going to either run because they're scared of being enmeshed, losing their sense of self. And so they deal with those deactivating strategies, which it sounds unbearable. Or they're people who have anxious attachment style tendencies also very much so fear intimacy. So many people think don't know that. They think, I just want to be close. I just want to have this beautiful relationship that's going to make everything amazing. I'm going to be okay. It's going to fix everything. And then they get themselves into this oh, you love me back. And Pia Melody talks about this in Facing Love Addiction, which is
I was waiting for you to say Pia Melody at some point.
I'm shocked it took this long.
I've seen it in a lot of videos.
Shocked it took this long. She talks about how because people who grew up to develop some anxious attachment styles never really experienced a true and healthy intimacy. So when they're met with it, they don't know how to handle it. And they either run or create chaos, right? And it's interesting too, because our attachment styles, although we may have a primary one, we can shift, we can flow. If I'm historically anxiously attached and I'm with somebody else who's either extremely securely attached or anxiously attached, my avoidant might pop up, right?
We could, okay, you're throwing me off here because now that was my follow-up question anyway, is how the heck do we get better from all this? Because a lot of this is about the issue and how do we go you're saying I could be an avoidant attachment and then switch out based on the person.
I've seen it less with people who struggle with avoidant tendencies, but it is possible. I have seen people who have avoidant tendencies become anxious.
Okay. Is that because there's a crossover between anxious and avoidant? I mean, do you see? No. Okay. They just have both. Do we have everything in us?
I think.
And sometimes things pop up.
I think that's because beyond all of these fancy terms, we are human, and we all just want and need to be loved and connected, and to love and to be connected. And that, I think, is where the challenge comes, is our deepest want is also our deepest fear. So there can be this internal push-pull.
Right.
And
hate.
Yes, and I believe it's totally healable, workable. If you work, it's hard. It's almost seriously hard work, but you can develop an earned, secure attachment.
Okay, talk to me about that. How do we do that?
Oh boy.
Let's hear.
So I love the using inner child work.
Okay.
Right. Developing a relationship with the younger parts of ourselves, getting really to that core wound, those younger selves who experience the stuff, if you will, learning how to be there for those younger parts, not just through experiential exercises based on the past, but also in the present, right? So if, let's say I struggle with avoidant tendencies, and I've done it, inner child work, I do it with my therapist, we do it on my own, and I'm dating, right? And this is also a little bit of, I'm integrating some parts work here too, so bear with me.
Okay.
And I notice my avoidant part coming up. And I can actually have a loving and healthy relationship with this avoidant part. I don't have to live in a reaction anymore, because now I understand, because I've listened to this part. I've let it talk to me. I've let it tell me what it needs. And I understand that this avoidant part is just trying to protect this little girl inside of me from being enmeshed or losing my sense of self. So when I set healthy boundaries, right? When I, make a promise and a commitment to continue to stay grounded in self and honor my boundaries, that avoidant, and actually do that in relationships, amongst other things, that avoidant part is going to learn it can trust me. To be in relationship doesn't need to mean losing my sense of self or being fully engulfed anymore.
Right.
Or being, what have you, all of these scary things that the nervous system carries from childhood.
And this could be done with just being able to compassionately look at that part, and that is definitely more parts work. That this professor of mine gave me this best advice in graduate school. He said, learn everything and then forget it all and talk to the person in front of you. And so I'm liking that you're saying, like it's like, yeah, you're going one method, but then you're adding other methods. Could this be done outside of a relationship? Yeah,
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. For some people, being in a relationship, it's a beautiful opportunity and a difficult one. And for some other people, it's like, I cannot tolerate this, so I actually need a little space. It depends on what somebody needs and wants. It can be done both, in and not in.
Because really, it's developing you.
It's developing you.
Right. Because that's one of the things that I talk about with addiction is that, I mean, we all talk about with addiction. Anybody who understands addiction is it's not the thing that's the problem. It's you that's the problem. That's the solution to the problem.
Exactly.
And then, so this is the solution.
Exactly.
I want to tell you my why I think codependency is good in a relationship.
Please do.
I want to see what you
Fill
think.
me in.
I believe everything in life goes in these 3 stages. That's from Stephen Covey. Puts the stages into Covey or Covey? Shoot.
Couldn't tell you.
I love him so much, and I don't think I've ever heard his name pronounced. So it's dependence, independence, interdependence. He skips codependence because I have a whole diagram that I do where codependence is just 2 dependent people having a relationship. Interdependence is 2 independent people having a relationship. So he skips it, but we could put it in. But what I found in every stage of life, every time we die and are reborn, we have to do these 3 stages within our life. So it's in the simplest way, like when we go from 8th grade to 9th grade, now we're in high school, now we're the baby again. And then we got to grow up again. And then we hit high, then we could be the star quarterback in 12th grade, and we hit freshman in college, and now we're a baby again, and we're starting again. And then you have to go from this like vulnerable dependent stage and build yourself into independence, and then be able to have relationships with people, the interdependence. And I see that happening in every stage of life, especially relationships. So like when a relationship starts, and if the relationship looked that way in 20 years, it's really unhealthy. Meaning when you see like, no, you hang up. No, you hang up. I don't want to go. I'll go to sleep with you on the phone. Like all this stuff. But that's the babyhood of the relationship. It's when we become dependent on each other. It's when we get to know that this person is there for me, and we're like falling into this enmeshment. This is where I think it's very confusing, is that we're falling into this special but somewhat unhealthy place where we're like narcissistically falling into each other. And as we develop in the relationship, we find ourselves more and more, and we individuate. I actually see a lot of breakups happening when people are like, oh, I'm not in love anymore because I don't have to like hold on to you all day long because I could be a person in the relationship. So what I have come to believe is that if you go into a relationship very rationally, like we are 2 people that, and we're not going to do that like lovey-dovey thing, it doesn't have the bond that babyhood has. And we need the babyhood to be able to build that love. And then we have to leave it. So that's what I was saying, that I think there's a codependent part. So
I love that you call the honeymoon phase of a relationship babyhood. Can I use it?
Steal it. I
love it. You are right. There is a babyhood or a honeymoon phase where all of these really delicious, yummy chemicals are being released, and it's very blissful.
Right.
We literally have rose-colored glasses on where I'm not seeing your flaws.
Right.
Like this is blissful, this is joyful. And then what happens is that when we leave babyhood and those rose-colored glasses come off, we start to see things about the person we didn't see before.
Right.
And that's tough for people.
Right. But I think the strength of that babyhood helps you deal with that. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember, like every once in a while, you look in each other's eyes and you're back there. It's not always back there, but sometimes you're back. You have to remember. I also think when we, the inner child is always gets the brunt of it, or even like the id, like we're like that ugly part of us. All excitement, all looking at the beautiful fall foliage. It's from the child. So when I think of like the beauty in marriage, it's from that babyhood of marriage. Like, wow, like all of a sudden we're like heady and we're walking down the block and we're like, and that could happen 25 years in. But if you didn't have in the beginning, that's what I was saying.
100%. I wouldn't define that as codependency.
Well, I would if it was 10 years in.
If it was 10 years in,
so
yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's like it is codependency, but it's the healthy. It's the baby. It's the dependency of a relationship.
Have you ever met a couple who's still in the babyhood? Like literally with that much, sorry couples, with that much bliss? Like in that rose-colored glasses?
It's both nauseating and delicious.
What? Really?
What do you mean?
I feel like
in the babyhood, like right in the beginning where they're like making out in the street.
Still maintaining that 20 years in. Because I've seen a fantastic, nauseatingly beautiful, mature love where like I have this image of like this elderly couple. They've been together for 50 years and like their souls are just so deeply connected, and one passes away and then the other one passes away 2 months later from literal heartbreak.
That's my move. That's gonna be my move.
Oh, I'm betting on you. Yeah.
You should, because that's my move.
Yeah.
I also have to live a little longer because my wife told me she can't handle my death, so I'm gonna do an extra 5 minutes.
Only 5 though. I
gotta make sure she's dead. I don't want to do the Romeo Juliet problem.
Good.
We
don't want that. We don't want.
I don't want to drop dead and then find out she was alive and just not whatever. Okay, so that's interestingly, I will tell you that in Jewish ideas, at the wedding, the chassan, the groom, wears a kittel because it symbolizes death. That party you died and then you're reborn, and also you have no sins the day of your wedding because you're like a baby. So I'm not getting it from nowhere. That's what I'm just saying.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Well, there you go. So I see that happening. I also think it's going to happen again, like in your relationship. Like I think there's like a golden age where you could fall back into it. I think, but I haven't hit it, so I don't know.
Please keep me posted, and please let me meet all of these couples who are still in the babyhood stage, like 30 years in.
I will say, I don't want to jinx myself, but it's going pretty good. I had a funny thing when I got married. Everybody would come over and for some reason thought this is a great thing to say to a newly married couple. And they would say, oh, you're still in love? Wait 5 years. Wait 10 years. Wait a month. Like they all had but the longest anybody said was 10 years. So when I hit 10 years, I don't know if I went back to the person, but I said, I made it. I'm still in love. It's 10 years in. I made it. I said this to somebody. He said, wait 20 years. I'm like, no, I waited.
Yes, you did 10 whole years.
I waited long enough. Okay, so,
It's beautiful love that you share with your wife. I believe in that love wholeheartedly. And a deep, yummy love is not codependency. And, all right. And,
I'll try to convince myself that.
Good luck.
I will keep that in mind. I agree. It's interesting because I was on a podcast and they had a whole issue with me professing my love about my wife and you should keep it private and intimate. And I always like publicly talk about my wife and stuff like that because I think it's romantic and special to do that. But then I realized like we only hear about the bad stories. we're constantly talking about difficulties in marriage and how to fix it and this, and no one's, we're not like putting it out there like, hey, these guys are crazy in love with each other. They're still having a great life. They built a family together. They went through everything, still love each other. So I told my wife, like, I think it's like becoming a little mission of mine to say it. And then she said, well, now I don't want you to say it anymore. She said, now I'm a mission. You want to say you love me because you love me, it's fine, but don't make it a mission.
Yeah, she's like, this was so romantic until you told me it's a mission.
Now it's a mission. She doesn't want it anymore.
Yeah, but look at you being interdependent and saying thank you very much for your feedback. And I'm still going to do it.
I'm still going and doing it. She listens to the whole podcast, so she'll know that.
Sweet.
That's true. Okay, so here's a question. First of all, you have any burning desires that we didn't talk about that I missed here? Every time you said something, I also got the feeling like this is a whole nother podcast.
We've got like 20 podcasts in this. There's a lot of
we touched on a lot of things, and there's so much deeper we go in every single one, which is cool.
For sure.
All right, we'll have to do it again. But is there something I'm missing here in this topic?
Like which topic? Which of the 20 podcast topics?
Okay, forget it. Okay, so I'll ask you the other question. This is a question I ask everybody who's ever done a podcast. I ask, what's your rooftop? If you got an audience of 1 million people and you're just yelling something from the rooftop, what is your rooftop yell like to the world? It doesn't. You could have 30 of them. Just pick one.
You sure you don't want to hear all 30?
Just go all 30. What's your like? What do you want to yell to the world? Probably should start with this in the podcast. No, I don't know.
Let's think. My one. I have a feeling it would change each day, but I think that today, my rooftop yell would be to remind everybody that every single person that they see was once a child, right? And see if they could see that child in each person and recognize that each and every person just wants the same things that you do. We all just want to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel like we belong.
Wow. That's pretty awesome.
I feel like I should jump up or something and
jump up and shout. No, I really enjoyed having this conversation because a lot of these topics, I don't think we got too icky, but a lot of these topics are kind of like dodged around. Like we just, I think the most important thing in our entire lives, and I was talking at somebody's Shabbat brachas the other day, and I say the other day, but it could have been 5 years ago. It was just the other day, and just this feeling came over me, and I'm like, you already won the lottery. Like, this is it. Like, having a relationship with one person for the rest of your life, this person is going to be the witness for your experience in your life, and you're going to be able to hold each other, and you're going to be able to go through every struggle as an observer and as a holder and and it seems to me that it's the most important thing in the world.
I can tell.
You can tell.
And also I relate very much, and I know that I'm somebody who has a deep need for connection and highly values relationships and love. And I know that I think some other people may not also share that exact same value.
Right. But I feel like it's what we all, or at least 99% of us, really, really desire. And we should be sitting on it all the time. Like, we should be talking about it all the time. I think you're lucky that you're helping people fix these issues. I mean, to know that out there is someone who could just hold you and be there with you, and because of some childhood crap, you have an avoidant attachment style, and you keep pushing away like those beautiful connectors that you could have been connected to. I haven't done enough podcasts on this topic, but I feel a great desire to keep doing podcasts on the topic of connection. And it's specifically because I think we're in a very unique time in history. I'm going to just do a little history thing. History is my other love, which I don't talk about enough. But I don't think we've ever had to choose somebody in our lives. It was always you needed a partner because it was needed. Marriage, even if you come people from other countries, they had to get married, then they had to figure it out. We do not need each other on a practical level anymore. So we have to choose. Therefore, it has to be magic. Like it can't be all right. What our previous generations could deal with. Oh, okay. I've heard couples say to me, "Oh, that was a rough decade." Like old people. We don't make it through a rough decade. We make it 6 months. 8 months, she's driving me crazy. I'm out. It's like, but they would say like, oh, it's like my grandparents' generation. Be like, oh, yeah, 40s were rough. He was cheating on me and this and that, and I had to deal with the mistress, and you're like, what? How did you stay?
Yeah.
It was a different time period where you had to have it, and now I feel like if this is not analyzed and figured out, it will die out. Relationships and marriage.
That is so sad. I hope it doesn't get replaced by like AI or ChatGPT. And I love that you're really shining a light on some of the stuff I think people struggle with that is a barrier for these deep relationships and these and love, right? Relationships have ups and downs. They have struggles, and there's beauty in making it through. Right? Instead of leaving because it's difficult, and finding beauty even in those difficulties. And there was another thing you said. Oh yeah, it was when that babyhood stage is over, people leave. Right? Rather than going through what we call the power struggle and then mature love.
Right.
And that's sad because some people would actually argue that mature love is even more fulfilling than babyhood.
It's way better. I'm saying that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. But people leave and then they go try to repeat that whole babyhood over. And I love that I'm calling it babyhood now. Thanks for that.
There you go. It's
instead of honeymoon phase. Yeah.
Honeymoon doesn't get it. It doesn't capture it. It's the same idea, but it doesn't capture it. Also, I don't know. It also means it goes forever. I feel like babyhood comes back. We always get in touch with our inner child. So a relationship gets in touch with their inner child.
Our inner baby.
I don't get in touch with my inner honeymoon.
I think there's an inner baby. I mean? There is an inner baby like in mature love.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm grateful to have made it into the club of mature love.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also a comedian, I don't know how to say his name, who wrote a book about exactly what you're talking about. This is the first time in history where it's like this, right?
A comedian wrote this? Sounds like a serious topic.
Ansari or whatever his name is.
Oh, he's Indian.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot his first name also.
Thank you. I feel less.
Okay.
Aziz
Ansari.
Yes. Yeah.
He got canceled almost. Oh, sorry. I don't want to ruin it.
I didn't know that.
That was during cancel time.
I don't believe in cancel culture, so
it's over.
I don't believe in it.
No. It's done. Trump won.
It's
over.
We're past that. Okay.
It's we passed it. Now everybody just walks around with guns. No more cancel.
Perfect.
Do whatever you want.
Is that what I looked like when I said we don't believe in cancel?
No. I'm just saying it happens to be. I think it's done. I think the time period is like everybody just rolls their eyes like, ugh, canceling another person. Ugh. Yeah. Go to Colombia and make a protest.
Okay.
Get cancelers. Okay, no, we're not getting political. Okay, I'm going to say thank you so much for coming in. That was awesome. And I do believe that we will do this again one day, I think. But I really appreciate you coming in.
What is your rooftop shout before?
I have to rooftop shout?
Oh, yeah.
People make me do that.
Do they?
No, one time before I think someone pulled this Uno reverse on me. Rooftop shout. think I'm going to go on this idea. Can't just go on idea. If you're yelling off of a rooftop, you got to yell it, right?
So you're going to yell it, right?
I'm going to try to yell it. One second. You already won, god damn it. Just enjoy it.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. That's the whole thing. No, it's not. If you're married, you already won. But I think even just being alive, like you already won this cosmic lottery, and okay, so you're miserable for 4 or 5 years. No, that's kind of how I feel. That's how I'm feeling today. I have many, many other rooftop shouts, but I definitely want to shout about when I watch people in relationships just missing what's happening. Just like thinking about all the other stupid things that are happening in the world and just missing that something that is completely miraculous. You don't have to believe in God. It's love is God. Like you and another human being have linked up and are making magic together. Just be able to see that. And it's like, it shines through everything. Whatever darkness is going on, it just shines through. I hope it's enough. For me, sometimes it doesn't feel like enough. I get so sad sometimes and I have difficulties, but it doesn't matter. There's never a moment that I don't know that I won. So that's what I want to yell at the world. Like, find your person and hang out for dear life. That's my rooftop shout. What do you think?
Beautiful. Good? I love it. All right.
She approves. This validation is very good for me. Okay. Thank you so much for coming in. We're going to call it, we're going to cut. We're going to call it quits. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this day that I've been given. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this chance. Thank you for this chance to live anew.